para yatırmadan 2.000 lira bonus. 30 ücretsiz dönüş. Kazancın kartınıza anında ödenmesi. Başlangıç için 2.000 lira al. Uygulamayı yükleyin.
I like using maple for all my shop projects because it's a very dense, heavy wood that's easy to obtain in my area and relatively cheap compared to other hardwoods. It'll give the assembly table a lot of mass and also take a good beating from day-to-day work. After I chop all these boards down to rough length with the miter saw, I've got one fat stack of boards that need to be milled flat and square. So I send everything across the joiner to get one face totally flat before I put that face against the fence and square up one edge. Then I can run them through the planer to get a nice flat surface on the other face. I love sticking rough lumber into the planer and watching it come out the other side nice and clean. It's so magical. Next, I head over to the table saw to cut everything to rough width using the square edge that I made at the joiner. But more importantly, look at how I'm playing it cool and pretending that I didn't notice that I forgot to turn on the dust collection. There's just nothing like a good dusting of mangler to make you feel like a real woodworker. Okay, with all my parts milled up, it's time to glue up some leg blanks. I'm using 2 pieces of 8/4 maple sandwiched together to make one leg blank. This will give me enough material to mill the legs down to a final dimension of 3.5 inches square. I like just using my built-in glue spreader here because I'm lazy and I don't want to walk all the way over to get a silicone brush out of the drawer. That's like 5 steps away. I'm also gluing multiple pairs of legs together to save on clamps. Just make sure you don't accidentally glue them together into one mega leg. And while those glue-ups are drying, I need to cut all my other frame parts to final length, and I like to gang similar pieces together. This helps in making the final assembly square because it guarantees that all the corresponding sides are exactly the same length. And once those leg blanks come out of the clamps, I run them back across the joiner on 2 sides to clean up those joints and get 2 flat square sides. Then back through the planer to get the other 2 sides flat and square as well. Look at those nice, crisp, clean legs. Looking so good. But after all that milling I've been doing, my dust collector was alerting me that it was time to empty the drum. Look at all that lumber just reduced to termite food. But that's the price you pay to get good, clean, straight lumber. All right, now that we're all depressed, let's get happy again and cut these legs to final length. Look at those beautiful legs. Doesn't that make you feel better? Next up, joinery. And here's a tip for any time you need to cut joinery in table legs. Once you've decided the orientation that you want for your legs, group them together and draw a diamond on top of the legs. This is a great way to remember which face of your legs are going to get joinery cut in them because all you have to do is look for which face the line touches. Once I marked out all my joints on the legs, it was time to put this in easy mode and use my domino to cut all the mortises. You definitely don't have to have a domino for this. You could use a drill and doweling jig, or you could cut traditional mortise and tenons, which will both be just as good but take way longer to cut. If you can only afford to buy one tool from Festool, the domino should be it. In my opinion, there's no better combination of speed and accuracy for joinery. I also need to cut mortises in the ends of all the other frame parts, which is easy too, just point and shoot. The only legs that don't get dominoes are the middle support legs. Those are going to be added later, and I need to cut some big notches in them to support the long stretchers. To do this, I put my dado stack in the table saw and hogged out all that material. Again, you don't need a dado stack. You could do this with a regular ripping blade on a table saw, but you'll be cutting these notches one blade width at a time, so just refer back to my previous ramblings about using tools to save time. Okay, enough of all that. It's finally time to bang this thing together, so I start by adding some glue and tapping in dominoes. This is my favorite part of assembly because everything just fits together so easily without additional tools other than a small persuader and some clamps. I decided the best way to tackle this was to assemble the long sides first, which would be the front and back sides. I'm putting this together all by myself, so gluing the whole frame all in one shot was just not likely to end well. To get these clamped up, I had to break out my extra long pipe clamps. This is where pipe clamps really save my bacon because it would be expensive, if not impossible, to find parallel or S-style clamps of this size. One thing about pipe clamps, though, is that they can exert a lot of force quickly, enough that I can easily bend this stretcher. So if this happens to you, just back off the clamping pressure until you see both the pipe and the board straighten out again. That'll be plenty of force to hold the joints together. Okay, fast forward and both the long sides are out of the clamps. But before I continue building, this is a great time to install leveling feet. Any type of outfeed table should have these because you never want to try to build it exactly to the height of your table saw. And unless you have dead flat floors, there's always going to be one side slightly higher than the other. All that headache can be avoided by just making your table about a ½ inch short and adding nice beefy leveling feet. I just countersink a tiny bit to allow for this plate to sit flush, and then I can drill down into the leg. Then I can just screw this thingy to the leg and make sure to drill pilot holes first. Then the feet just screw in, and now this table is going to be fully adjustable to get it to just the right height. Okay, now I need to add a bunch of dominoes to all these mortises. I don't know why, but tapping in dominoes is one of the most satisfying feelings. And now I'm realizing I'm going to have to take this thing to the floor before I can add the sides and stretchers. And these just slide right over those dominoes and into place. Sometimes you got to tap it a little bit. And I make sure to add some support under the mill to make pressing these stretchers on a little bit easier. Okay, now comes the most stressful part of the whole build. Somehow I need to make these 20 dominoes line up perfectly with the 20 mortises before all this glue begins to dry. Once I got this side lined up, I worked on the other end, and slowly but surely, every domino fell into place. Get it? Dominoes falling into place? Never mind. Even without clamps, this thing is rigid enough to flip it upright. And that's when my plan almost hit a major snag. My longest parallel clamps are 50 inches, and I've got plenty of those on hand. But this frame is 52 inches wide. Right before I began cursing my lack of forethought, I discovered that by luck I could squeeze a couple more inches out of these clamps, and they just fit, and I was able to apply clamping force. Crisis averted. I get everything clamped up, and surprisingly, everything is pretty square. But let's say in your case that it's not. What would you do? If you suspect that it's not, just take a tape measure and measure it from corner to corner and see if it's the same distance than the other corners. If one direction is a little longer than the other one, apply a light amount of clamping pressure to those corners and then check it again until both diagonal measurements are the same. So, while that glue up is drying, I can move on to cutting the cabinet parts. For the cabinet sides and bottom, I'm using 3/4 inch pre-finished maple ply, the same thing that I build all my other shop cabinets from. First, I like to rip off the ragged factory edge and make them nice and crispy. Once that's done, I can cut everything to final dimensions. Okay, now I'm going to attach these center support legs, and these are going to prevent the middle of the table from sagging over time, as well as provide a nice visual divider between the two banks of drawers. So installing these legs is pretty simple, really. I just need to find the exact center of the apron and lower stretchers and mark that position. Then I can mark the exact center of the legs. After that, I just add some glue to these notches and line up the marks on the legs with the marks on the table. Then I'll just add a couple clamps before doing the same thing on the back side. Now with those legs installed, I can begin installing the cabinets. I start by countersinking some holes into the side panels with this cool countersink drill bit, and then I can clamp the panels into place. Then, with cat-like nimbleness, I maneuver my way into the center of the table.
I have a couple of friends that call me Whiskers.
And that's where I'll just screw these panels into place. And now to maneuver to the other side for more fun with contortion. And with all the side panels in place, I can go take some ibuprofen and work on installing the back panels. So these are pretty easy, but I did need to cut a notch in the top to make way for the center support to run through it. You'll see what I mean in a minute. This notch is easy enough to cut with a jigsaw, and a drill bit can make a nice little release to quickly remove the center and clean up the bottom of the notch. And now you can see how it slides over that center support, so I can screw it into the side panels. And down at the bottom, I added some small plywood cleats, and this is going to give me a place to drop in the bottom of the cabinets. Because these cabinets will be filled with drawers, a bottom panel is kind of unnecessary. However, it will keep the cabinets free of dust, cobwebs, and any kind of critter who might try to make their home in here. This also gives you the flexibility that if you don't want all those drawers but would rather have shelves and doors, you can still use this cabinet for storage. Okay, so behind the cabinets, I'm going to add more cleats. This time the cleats are full length because I plan on storing a bunch of items like air compressors and jigs back here, and so these bottoms need to be able to hold that weight. Now that that's done, I need to fill these cabinets with drawers. I like making my drawers out of 5/8" Baltic birch ply. It has a clean look, and 5/8 of an inch is the perfect size even for larger drawers. I'm going to go ahead and make it easy on myself and make all these drawers the same size, because past me knew that future me would want this part of the project done quickly, so I just set the distance on my fence and cut all my parts. And then I cut a groove down all the sides to capture the drawer bottoms. This is easily done with a single saw blade. You just sneak up on the cut until the drawer bottom fits just like this. Now, for all of you who may be thinking that I'm some kind of elitist woodworker who only uses Festool, you can think again, because I love using pocket holes to build all my drawers. I think this is the perfect application for them. Quick to do, and all the pockets are hidden. Even my solid maple kitchen drawers have pocket hole construction. And for drawer assembly, I adhere to the KISS model. Just keep it simple. With my parts aligned like this, they fold up and I can align the joints and make sure they're nice and square before I add a pair of clamps. I pop in my pocket screws, and I find glue to be optional here. If you did add glue to these, just make sure to tape off the inside of those joints so that the glue squeeze out is easy to remove. And then I can just slide the bottom in from the back side and tap it into the groove in the front of the drawer. I like adding screws here, especially for shop drawers, because they're going to end up holding a good amount of weight. And I just repeat that process 5 more times and all my drawers are done. Now to install these, I'm using undermount drawer slides. You can save some money for sure and use side mount slides, but I already had a ton of these undermounts on hand from all my cabinet projects. In my opinion though, if you build drawers using this method that I showed you, then installing undermount slides is a breeze and there's so much more adjustability. Don't worry, I won't bore you with any more talk about drawer slides, but I do have a video explaining my dead simple process for installing them that I'll leave a link to in the description below. And in the meantime, I'll wow and amaze you with this crudely edited animation. So wouldn't you know it, I decided that I didn't need all this dead space